Great holes secretly are digged where earth's pores ought to suffice, and things have learnt to walk that ought to crawl. What happens when dreams fold into an eternal reality, and will you keep your promise? Signalis is a retro-style, top-down psychological horror game that can be best described as a love child between the old Resident Evil and Silent Hill. It features classical literature references from H.P. Lovecraft's works and The King in Yellow by Robert W. Chambers, even featuring direct quotes. Like the works Signalis references, it can be incredibly subtle with its storytelling, and much of its story is left up to interpretation. If you like cosmic horror, you're going to enjoy this episode. The beautiful soundtrack is prominently featured and induces a heavy atmosphere throughout the game, including German composers like Beethoven and Schubert. I also discovered this soundtrack is very similar and reminds me of the Japanese 2000 film Battle Royale, which inspired The Hunger Games and is a fantastic movie. I'm Oliver, the host of Indiefarer. I do deep dives into video games and expose the true plot, character arcs, and development processes. If you like everything to do with gaming, consider following me for more. If you like indie development, we have lots of other podcasts within the Indie Bubble Network, including another gaming podcast if you ever want to listen to another creator. Today I'm talking about a game that came out in 2022, right during the spooky season in October. Signalis is pretty beloved by those who play it, and the online presence it has, while not large, is very passionate. Due to the vague nature of the game, most of the information that I have is theoretical and not confirmed by the developers. I also have purposefully avoided watching or listening to other theories so that I could create my own without bias, and those that I reference are in the wiki themselves. I also plan to eventually follow this episode up after I've explored more of the community and read The King in Yellow myself. This game was clearly made with lots of love and credits two people on Rose Engine's website, Yuri Stern and Barbara Whitman. This episode will talk about war and violence. If either are triggering for you, this is a great time to click away. The game begins with a female robot being awakened on board a crashed starship. Without much explanation, the robot is left to wander empty metal rooms and halls, and eventually she finds the cockpit. Outside the windshield is an ice storm that shields any view of the ship's surroundings, and the radar doesn't reveal anything useful about its location, only that our Gestalt, or human captain, is not on board, and there are dangerous conditions outside. After solving a puzzle, the robot, who we've discovered is called Elster, confirms the captain, pictured with short white hair named A. Young on the inspected console, is missing from her cryosleep pod. Further investigation also reveals that one of the ship's protective suits has been taken. Zipping up the remaining protective suit, Elster takes her first step out of the ship. Outside, the blizzard does little to help one gain a sense of direction, and there is no comfort in all that cold snow. Only a hole that should not have been dug. Past the stone gate, Elster goes down the hole, ignoring the blood that surrounds the walls as she descends deeper and deeper. And she ends up crawling through another hole and comes out the other side into a small room. Looking around, we can see that the hole actually disappears, and we're now in a pretty comfy and neatly decorated room. It has books, posters, a radio, even a safe, and on the desk is The King in Yellow. We'll be seeing this book a lot, so let me give you a small summary of what this book is, and this summary is not a personal summary as I have not read it. This book inspired H.P. Lovecraft's cosmic horrors, and it features a collection of connected short stories, most prominently of which features a play that drives its readers insane when they read it. On the book are 6 seals, which will line up with objects we later collect in the game, but it's important to note that collecting these objects is not what breaks all of these seals. That is still very much unknown and up to speculation. Everything flickers to a warning message, followed by a series of numbers, and then we see it for the first time. Remember your promise. In a bathroom, Elster collects herself. She is now presumably beneath the surface on the planet Lang, in the mining facility called Sierpinski. As she explores Sierpinski Station, it becomes abundantly clear that something has gone horribly wrong. Bloody, injured bodies litter the floor and hallways, and one even reanimates and attacks Elster, setting the pretense that there will never be safety, even if there is only death. She then finds her first living human patching herself up. She doesn't have much to say, but she leaves a note behind that indicates her name is Issa, and she's looking for a girl named Erica. We will definitely be seeing more of her later. Elster runs into a robot called a Star Unit right afterwards, which is a type of general security unit who doesn't bother to mince words at all. Everyone is dead. And she further declares that Elster will die too, but Elster is determined. She hands the security replica a picture, asking if she knows the human. This, oddly, is not the same picture that we collected before. This girl looks very similar, but she has long brown hair that is put up. More notably, the code on the back is gone, confirming it's definitely not the same photo, and instead has a name, Alina Seo. We'll come back to this, but for now, the replica says that she doesn't recognize her, but she may work down in the mines. There's no question about it. Elster will go down into the mines, but it's not going to be a simple journey, and it's not as easy as taking an elevator, unfortunately. As Elster explores the next floor, there's a myriad of things that we discover as players. For one, the current government is very strict with security. Crimes and disobedience are not tolerated and punished by even death, as showcased by a human who was interrogated for the illegal use of a radio and quote-unquote expired during interrogation. Another also quote-unquote expired for trespassing. She also finds a box with a butterfly on it that was confiscated from Alina Seo after being taken to the hospital for an injury, but the moment it's unlocked, Elster is transported to a memory of Rotfront. Being absolutely pounded by huge flakes of snow, one can make out a radio outpost. Through some reading and searching, we discover this outpost is where Ariane Young, the white-haired pilot from the very beginning, grew up. She lived with her mother, just the two of them, for the longest time. It's not specified how long she stayed there, but she eventually moved to Sector C in the actual city to study radio operations, where she likely learned about some robotics, as I would personally theorize most going into military service would, which, from what I understand in the Usin Nation service, is mandatory for all humans. She didn't move out to the city to be with complete strangers, though. Previous visits to the city have been indicated based on her friendships and general notes about Rotfront throughout the game. Elster also picks up a radio module, which is very important while playing the game, and upon picking it up, she is back in the Sierpinski facility. She also gains a hexagonal tablet called the Plate of Eternity, which is a direct reference to the King in Yellow, and the plate itself is featured as one of the 6 seals on the book. Elster also meets a living Storch, which are security robots built very tall to help serve their function, which is surveillance. That Storch informs her that everyone got sick. This is confirmed by a replica being kept alive by machines in the hospital wing, and records nearby. Said records indicate that Gestalts who contract this disease generally die within 5 days due to blood loss, as the skin simply falls off. Eventually, she finds a hospital record regarding an injury Alina sustained and how the station actually began to change while she was recovering. We also find a VHS tape, which, when watched, transports Elster to a memory of Rotfront. I think this is a good time to address one of the theories that is widely shared among the fan base. I do think that it's true due to a lot of the similarities, particularly discussed about moons, planets, and surrounding bodies in the make-believe solar system. I personally believe, as does the majority of the fan base, that this solar system isn't so make-believe and is more of a future version of our current solar system. Lang, the first planet I mentioned, is the only planet I don't think is based on a real celestial body and is purely fictional, especially because it's a direct reference to the Plateau of Lang from H.P. Lovecraft's universe, which exists in the Dreamlands. Though Signalis does not describe Lang much, due to the amount of references, it's pretty easy to assume that this Lang is much like Lovecraft's, and it probably has very large dry benches of land and is very cold. Rotfront is most likely one of Jupiter's moons, possibly either Europa or Ganymede, which is in the process of what the Eucin people as a whole called climaforming, which directly translates to climate forming or terraforming. It's dangerously cold, and there's rarely a day without a whiteout. There's a lot of evidence that supports this due to the legend around Rotfront's red eye, which, when described, is very similar to the storm that rages on Jupiter. It's also a good time for me to share some of the history of this specific universe because the backstory is long and shapes the majority of the story. Starting with Rotfront and Lang, these planets are currently under the control of the Eucin nation, a rebel nation born from the death of the monarch of the Eucin Empire. In this universe, humans were once planet-bound, fighting amongst one another, much like our reality. However, one day an empress united all humans together with a power called bioresonance. In layman's terms, it's mind control. But more expansively, bioresonance is the ability to control others through their emotions, project one's own emotions and memories, and in very extreme cases, even crafting subconscious or conscious illusions. In other words, it's being psychic. The Empress led humanity to the stars, projecting cooperation that led to huge advancements in technology, specifically a technology called replicas, or robots. These replicas are given human personalities based on their type, meaning all star robots have the same personality, then all Elsters have the same personality, and so on, with the majority of their human memories erased. After use, these replicas will eventually begin to deviate from the original personality, which they call destabilization, and gain more independence. It's also important to know that there is a note in the game that explains that the original human that these replicas were based on has been erased from history to avoid any confusion or errors with the robots. Partially organic, I would describe these replicas as being a little closer to cyborgs than full robots. Their parts are entirely engineered, but partially bioengineered, meaning they have artificial skin, muscle, blood, etc. In fact, there are theories that the aforementioned bioengineered parts may have actually been somehow organically harvested, but I'll get to that particular theory a little bit later. With the help from replicas, humanity left their version of Earth, which is called Veneta, and set out to explore the rest of their solar system, and slowly began claiming resources for the entire human race, which became the Eucin Empire. As a side note, terraforming was also one of these technologies that they created and successfully terraformed the planet Kites, which is theorized to be Mars. Such amazing technology also allowed them to build a floating city on the planet Buyan, theorized to be Venus, above the toxic clouds and deadly weather. I can only surmise that the Empire decided to make Buyan its capital solely because it showcased how far humanity had come. But nothing lasts, and the Empress's reign would not end in a natural death. According to one of the notes, the Empress chose to take her own life the day after her wedding. And when the Empress's grip on the nation had suddenly vanished, many citizens would quickly realize they did not appreciate being under the forceful control of a bioresonant leader, sparking revolution. It was bloody. It was devastating. The war that followed was fought with both replicas and humans alike. Veneta was absolutely ravished, interplanetary war destroying its moon, sinking it into the oceans, which subsequently rose and turned it into an ocean world, known for its remaining skyscrapers that stick out harshly against the water. Eventually, the rebels simply called the Eucin Nation, which from here on out I'll simply refer to as the Nation, and the former will be the Empire. But the Nation won Veneta, unfortunately with serious losses, including storage on Veneta that contained the main character's original personality, which is also called a neural pattern. Now gone, just like the land Veneta once had. The nation gained control of Lang and Rotfront as well, but due to their hatred of the Empire, they wouldn't stop there. Propaganda makes it clear that the nation intends to liberate Kites and Buyan as well. Due to the quick expansion of the nation and the lack of support, the nation began a military operation to look for more resources called the Penrose Program. Essentially, the idea of the program was that a human and Elster model replica would be paired together to pilot a starship on a long-term mission to search the cosmos for minerals. And Penrose is all over the ship that Elster crashed in. Penrose 512, to be specific. So now we're here, trapped on Lang, looking for our partner pilot. Or we were. As I was saying, Elster watches a VHS tape and is transported to Rockfront. On a train, we see Ariane, supposedly a memory from traveling the city before she left for a military service. But she disappears before we get close, leaving behind the final key we need to get to the next door. And that will be no easy task. A Mina unit guards the entrance of the second floor, ready to take Elster out. These units are large mining robots that are equipped with a mining laser. Not exactly something you want to be shot with. But she endures, where she comes face to face with the administrator unit, Adler, which notably is the only male character in the entire game. He also has a yellow name, which denotes that he likely has some connection to the King in Yellow. I also believe that he has been watching Elster this entire time. As you play, cameras throughout rooms follow your movements and track you, showing someone is clearly in control. Elster shows Adler the picture of Alina, which Adler confirms she works in the mines. However, Elster can't ask anything else before Adler suddenly pushes her down a broken elevator shaft, telling her she should have never returned. Now, this language is obviously very confusing because this is Elster's first time here. Or is it? As she lands, she's only saved by the cushioning of dead bodies piled at the bottom. And not just any dead bodies. Her dead bodies. Many Elster units litter the ground, broken, bleeding, murdered. Things are definitely getting weirder. You know, besides corpses being reanimated, another living unit, an RR unit, which is a technician that hid in the vents, says she's also spoken to us, that we already know her. Elster explores another 4 floors, even witnessing Issa and Adler meet, which doesn't go well. Issa recognizes Adler is not friendly and runs away from him, knowing she doesn't have the option to fight. There are also lots of general notes that begin to spell out the history that I went over just a little bit ago. Posters show features from each planet, each with their own heading, and there are lots of operations notes scattered throughout the facility. This is also where we learn about persona destabilization, and it can actually be prevented by keeping the replicas happy. Each brand of robot has their own preferences on what makes them happy, like music or dancing or reading, and their own warnings on what human operators should avoid to encourage destabilization. We also find the source of the infection, or one of them, Falk. She is the commander unit that leads the entire facility, and she was the first to fall ill. In her diary, she mentions seeing Ariane, and that Falk's memories are no longer her own. As Elster looks around the room, the commander does not stir from what I can only assume is a deep coma. Solving the puzzle, Elster will acquire a key to keep moving forward, and she can leave. More secrets are quickly uncovered as both Adler and Alina's diaries are discovered. Alina's tone is concerned. She's waken up from the hospital, and everyone is sick. A replica even attempted to attack her. Alina mentions that she hasn't seen Elster, and she's worried. Adler's diaries are also found, giving Elster the first clue that she's trapped in the same day, as Adler has also noticed the repetition, but hasn't quite put a name to what's happening, chalking it up the discrepancies due to poor replica memory, which I honestly think is a lie told to replicas to make them less likely to trust any resurfacing human memories. Originally, Adler and Falk ordered the Elster unit to be delivered to the Sierpinski's facility. In one diary, the entries indicate that the unit was delivered and helping out in the mines already. But in another, it says that the commander fell sick before she was ever able to actually order it. The first diary lines up with Alina's knowledge of Elster's existence, while the second shows the clear loop that multiple Elsters seem to be advancing on Sierpinski. That still won't deviate her from her mission.
She is here for Alina, not to solve this mystery. It's only a bonus if she actually does. Continuing deeper, Elster becomes better equipped with heavier and more accurate weapons, and she is eventually able to find the key to the mine.
Deep below, great holes are secretly digged, where Earth's pores ought to suffice, and things have learned to walk that ought to crawl. And it pulses and waits, eager for more to join. But we're not the only ones among the living that are down here. Adler has tracked Issa deep into the mine, but she manages to catch him by surprise and stabs him in the eye, causing him to fall backwards down a deep hole. Issa doesn't hang around. She hasn't found Erica yet, and she has more places to look. But before Elster jumps down that hole after Adler, she meets 3 other uninfected replicas, each in their own states of injury. The Mina unit is rather pleasant to talk to, but the conversation sadly drifts towards her ease of replacement in light of her fatal injuries. The other 2 ignore Elster's presence entirely, talking amongst one another. A Yule unit and a Star unit speak in hushed tones, and the injured Star tells the Yule that she knows she's not going to make it. But she cares about the other girl, and she wants her to know that she remembers her human name. Something that's incredibly intimate, but the Yule is just far too devastated to accept. Instead, she begs the fallen star not to leave her, but in the end, the Yule will die alone too. More reanimated bodies attack everything in range, but they aren't really necessary to fight. Elster can easily run past them if she's fast enough, and she eventually makes it to the hole. There's clearly no way back, by the way. If she jumps down, that's it. But there's also nowhere to go but forward, so she takes the leap of faith. And in the area she lands, it is far from holy. It is a fleshy hell pit called Nowhere. Elster must explore this living land to find the remaining plates: flesh, love, balance, sacrifice, and knowledge. Flesh and love are also references to the King in Yellow. During this particular excursion, we will again run into Issa, who is defending herself against a vicious monster, but unfortunately she knocks herself out with the recoil of the rifle. Elster uses said rifle to kill the monster and escape with Issa, who will later wake up with a little help, and she rightfully decides that Elster is probably better off with such a powerful firearm. Once she's finished with Issa and collecting all the plates, Elster finally makes it to the final door, which unlocks with her collected slates. Suddenly, Elster sees the shores of oblivion, and she walks along the beach, reading about moons and stars falling out of the sky. When she approaches the cave on either side, she'll see a hand poking out, but she can get no closer. From here, a cutscene takes over, and Adler stands before the stone gate that we saw at the very beginning and begs Elster not to go forward, but she must, and he knows she will. She walks forward before being attacked from afar, which I imagine was courtesy of Adler, a shot going through her arm. But she continues on regardless, memories of her human life rushing back. She remembers everything. A lot of what I'm about to talk about is purely theory because it's based off of images, notes, and inference. I wanted to make that clear just right away. We see a war-torn Veneta, a woman watching the waters rise and overtake the once beautiful city she knew. Trench warfare, atomic bombs, planetary bombardment. There was little both sides wouldn't do to win, and the Gestalt Elster experienced the worst of it. The photo we carried of Alina didn't show the whole thing. It was altered. Another woman stood next to her in the photo, and that was human Elster. She lost her right eye, or it was seriously injured anyway, in the battle while fighting for the People's Army with Alina Seo. And human Elster's whole demeanor was built on the wars she fought, which explains the replica instructions that come with the Elster unit that specifically instruct not to let the unit watch war films. And I mentioned it earlier, but with Elster's neural pattern lost on Veneta, I can't imagine they lasted longer than a few years. I'd have to guess that Alina is around 45 years old by the time of the actual playthrough, and if human Elster was around the same age, she couldn't have been the main neural pattern for more than a decade.
What I failed to mention is that in the same note, they state that any new Elsters are built from a decommissioned copy, meaning the blueprint is no longer a clean slate and has robotic and human memories still implanted. Her tenacity is a built-in feature, one might say. She doesn't stop just because she was shot. She sees the crash ship, and that's all she cares about now. But when she goes to open the door, her arm rips clean off, and she falls with the door bloodied, battered, tired, and dead. That's the end. And admittedly, that's very confusing if you just leave it there. The truth is, that's only half the story. When you play again, your next playthrough is something entirely different. This game's story is so complicated that I will actually have to split this into 2 parts. If you really enjoyed this first part and you want to know how it ends, please join me for part 2. It'll come out in about 2 weeks and you'll be able to find out how it actually ends. I appreciate your support and all of my listeners. Please give a like and give Indiefarer and Indie Bubble a follow. If you would like to get into contact with me, you can find my email and socials on the Indie Bubble website. I am very passionate about what I do, and I love sharing ideas and theories with others. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on these games. I will be uploading about every 2 weeks on Sunday, and if you have any suggestions for future shows or comments, please reach out. In the next episode, I will be continuing my discussion of Signalis, and I will make sure that I go into some of the theories that I did read. I'm very excited to finish this, and this is one of my favorite games of all time. Thanks for joining me, and keep gaming.